Just a future reference type thing. If I ever appear well rested, or I say something like, "Hey, I got way too much sleep last night," or if I say, "Everything in the theater is going just fine. It's really smooth, actually." That's your sign to kill me because I'm clearly an alien imposter. This week we are talking about the gender binary and breaking the gender binary. One of the questions they've asked us this week is where we fall on the gender spectrum. I didn't know there was a gender spectrum, but we went to my favorite place in the entire world, Wikipedia, second only to like the Vatican in points of holiness. Apparently there's a whole spectrum to it. A lot of people actually don't represent it on a scale, like a numerical scale, which is what I pictured, much like the Kinsey scale for sexuality. As far as how I identify my gender, I've always identified as a dude. Everyone else has always identified me as a dude. The next question they ask us is, how do we define gender? Should we define gender? How do I define gender? I don't know. I legitimately don't know. I never thought of it before. I've never had to think about it before. In almost every psychology class I've ever talked about, been in, we've at one point or another, we bring up the difference between sex and gender. Sex, of course, being biological, gender being mental, and in some respects, gender being like a social construct and your mental representation of how you fit into that construct. So I guess that's how I define gender, is how you view yourself in fitting in with your peers, and if you identify as more masculine or more feminine based on the social norms that we've created. So going off of that, do we need to define gender? Do we need to define gender? I don't know. On the one hand, I want to say, yeah, let's go ahead and define gender. What's the harm? But on the other hand, there is harm. We see it. We see it with transgender folk and intersex people, because their identity doesn't match up with what society views them as, and to me that's not chill. I think that we should respect the labels that people put upon themselves. Should we define gender? Sure. I think we should do that. I think that a lot of people find comfort in gender. So let's define gender, but let's not exclude people from their own definition. So if someone identifies as male and you would normally identify them as female, I respect the fact that they identify that way and go with that definition. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully we'll get to see some of the responses from the other quilt baggers. I've been kind of lonely on the internets these past 2 weeks. Oh, other quilt baggers, where have you been? I miss you. I do. And I really want some input from my other quilt baggers this week, or from anyone on the Tumblr or the YouTubes, because I'm by no means an expert on this topic, and I'd like to know from everyone else how you identify your gender, and why you think we identify gender.